Mommy was such a gifted person socially. She was a master of the understatement, an adventuress.
I have been dying to ask you about Marcel Proust. Was Proust truly a homosexual? Qu'est-ce que tu penses?
Papa spoke languages, climbed mountains. He was an adventurer.
Well, sir, I'm pretty expert.
He was cold and dark, and she was warm and light. And I was little Tony. With Savage Grace, what instantly stood out to me was the extremity of the story, and how not only theatrical this family were in the sense of the extremes of the lives they were living, and the extremes of the emotions that they lived, but also the fact that it was true.
All of us grow up in our own families and create our own families, and there's a fascination with, I think, maybe the extremity of family life, about how far people can push one another. You hope in your own family that it's in a good way, that there's this tremendous elasticity to a family and love and everything, and they had that coupled with this incredible destructiveness. And it sort of went far beyond what anybody can imagine.
Don't you dare condescend to me. French, you know, they tell you how to raise your child when your back is turned, they stare at your ass. Yes, que! I know the word. This society is sick. Mauvais!
And so I think there's an interest in watching these somewhat ordinary people live in this extraordinary circumstance.
Find the man, she'd say. And she meant man, I guess, and she meant money.
The crime is the climactic event in a story that is really about family and secrets and the limits of love in a family. So that the thing I'm mostly interested in the story is the trajectory of this particular woman marries this particular man, they have a son, and what happens in the chemistry of the three, in the relationship between the three of them. The crime is, of course, the thing that made this family famous, and the story inevitably works up towards it. I'm certainly interested in fact-based material. I mean, I think part of that comes from reading things like In Cold Blood, or the writing of Janet Flanner, who wrote for The New Yorker, or even Joseph Mitchell, who wrote for The New Yorker, when I was younger, and being very moved by the idea of combining veracity of factual material with the dramatic element of strong storytelling.
It's very sad, but I think it's very compelling, because it's in essence just human behavior.
This is a film you cannot miss. You have to go and see it. I've never been in a film like this, and I think I've never seen something similar.
Well, you would want to see this movie because it's disturbing, it's exciting. I think it's quite profound about what human beings are to each other. It seems to address the question of how attached and detached we can afford to be from each other.
It's an extraordinary story, and one that you almost can't believe, and yet it happened. These people were real. The glamour and the society and the circumstance they were living in was real, and yet this deep, almost Greek tragedy happened in the midst of it. And actually relating the Greek tragedy thing is kind of insane. You can't believe that a true story could have had such resonance. So.
Every family has secrets. Every family is complex. Not every family goes on a journey, like the journey of the Baekeland family, obviously. But I think by looking very closely at a very complicated family, we shed light in this story in terms of, what is the fundamental nature of being a family? What is the obligation and relationship of a mother and son, or a husband and wife, or a father and son? And in this story, you see great success in certain ways at love, and you see devastating failure. Again, this idea of loving too much and loving too little, and the consequences of that in terms of these characters, in terms of the story.
We still have the collar, and we have moved and moved and moved, and we have never lost it.
Cut.